Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Brennan Bias from Checkit.com and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. Well, actually it's Wednesday, not Tuesday, because, sometimes I get busy and, I just end up releasing a tutorial a day late, no big deal. But I should really come up with something that is for Wednesday tutorials, because I can't say Tutorial Wednesday, that's just ridiculous and things of that sort. So if you guys have any ideas for what I can call like Wednesday tutorials, leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know, because this tends to be a semi frequent occurrence, so it'd be good to have a little bit of a backup there. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's tutorial. So what we're creating today is this this was originally meant to be the Rasengan from Naruto, and if I botched the name of that, forgive me, I'm not Japanese, I don't speak Japanese properly or anything like that, but apparently some other people thought that this was like the Kamehameha wave or something of that sort, but I really don't know. It's really meant to be Rasengan, or just a ball of energy. So this is what we're going to be creating, and we're going to have fun doing it. Oh yeah. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in creating this ball of light is by essentially just creating this by itself in its own document. So let's make a new document here. And if you want to give it a name of Rasengan or ball of energy or something like that, that's completely fine, up to you. And the width and height, once again, are up to you, but keep them square dimensions. I'm using 1500 by 1500 with a 72 pixels per inch resolution with a white background. And also make sure you're on RGB color, that's kind of important as well. So let's hit OK, and we'll hit Control-0 to zoom into canvas size so we can have a nice big view of our canvas here. And let's invert the background by hitting Control or Command-I, depending if you're on a PC or a Mac. And I guess I'll double click the background and rename it BG, hit OK, there we go. And let's get started here. So we're going to need some rulers to determine what is the center point of our canvas here. So one way to do that is by bringing up our rulers by hitting Control or Command-R, and then we'll click and drag from this left ruler until it lines up with the center, and you'll see it snap at 750 pixels there. Then we'll click and drag from the top on down until it snaps to the center as well. I think I just missed the center right about there. There we go. And then we'll hit Control-R once again to hide the rulers, and we are set to go. So let's go grab our ellipse tool off to the left-hand side over here. And for the fill, just kind of set that to some sort of dark gray color. And we don't need a stroke or anything of that sort. And let's click and drag from the center of the rulers while holding Alt and Shift, or Option and Shift if you're on a Mac, and just make this a roughly good size on the canvas. I'm going to make it about yay big, around 1000 pixels, right around there. And then to hide the rulers, because they're going to get in the way, I'll hit Control semicolon or Command semicolon if you're on a Mac. And so basically this ellipse is going to serve as like a kind of like a bounding box, or kind of like a blueprint for the size of the Rasengan itself. We're not actually going to use this for the Rasengan. It's just kind of like a measuring tool for us to determine how big to make the ball of light itself. So let's start off by creating all of the swirly crap that goes around in the ball of light. So I'm going to make a new layer above the ellipse. And you don't need to make a name for this just yet. You don't have to worry about that. And let's go to our brush tool by hitting the letter B. And let's make our foreground color white. And I guess that's a pretty good size for my brush right now. I'm at about 80 pixels for the size with a hardness of 0%. And we're going to add a little bit of variation to this brush. So let's bring up our brush panel by hitting F5 on our keyboard. Or you can go to Window and there's Brush right there. And let's go toggle the shape dynamics and turn that on. And for that, all you're going to do is put the size jitter all the way up to 100%. And you're also going to put up the angle jitter and the roundness jitter. And then the minimum roundness, you can make that whatever you want. I'll probably keep that down around 15%, somewhere around there. And let's, if you really want to, you can also mess with the spacing in the brush tip shape area to kind of determine how fluid this is. I'll actually probably put this down to about 20% rather than 25%. So once you have all that going on, let's do a little test run here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag around the edge here. Oh, it's a little see-through. Let's undo that. I'm going to turn up the opacity on the brush. For some reason, it was on 65% rather than 100%. So let's try this again. Click and drag. There we go. So now we're getting this like random jittery white brush stroke around the edge here. And so now with that layer selected, let's go to Filter, Distort, and we'll do a twirl. And let's set the angle to positive 999 degrees and hit OK. And so that'll create this nice, interesting little swirly kind of thing going on here. And so now from here on, just make a new layer, and maybe you can size down the brush or size it up or something like that, and we'll create another thing of randomness, and then we'll hit Control F to reapply that filter to that. That'll be Command F if you happen to be on a Mac, which just reapplies the last filter used. And so just kind of create new layers and keep adding in randomness. You can add like maybe just like a corner up here, hit Control F, and then make another new layer. Let's maybe add another one down here, Control F, and let's maybe add one more up there, Control F. Looking pretty good. And you can also hit Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac and like move it around, maybe size it down to make it fit with different parts a little differently, things of that sort. And just kind of keep going through and adding in all of these different sizes. So maybe I'll size down the brush a little bit more. And let's try making like a spiral, see what happens with that. That's kind of interesting, not too bad. And let's try adding in another one just for fun of it around here. Control F. All right. So just play with that as you see fit. And once you have all of these layers set, just kind of select all of them by selecting the top one and shift clicking to the bottom one. And we can merge these together by hitting Control E or Command E if you're on a Mac. And then we can just rename this to Swirls. Lovely. Okay. So let's go back to our move tool because I don't like having the random like round brush going on here. And we're going to hit Control T on our keyboard or Command T if you're on a Mac. And we're going to click and drag outside of this while holding Shift until it's rotated 45 degrees like so. And then I'll click and drag this bottom right hand edge right here while holding the Alt key until it's squished down to a size that I think looks pretty good. So somewhere around there is looking nice. But then I'm also going to squeeze in this side just a little bit. Right around there looks pretty good. Just kind of coming off of the edge of that circle just a touch. Maybe I'll actually size this down a little bit more. There we go. So mess with that as you so choose. It's a lot of experimenting. It might take a couple of tries to get something that looks, pixel perfect, but just have fun with it, see what you like. So once you've got that to a size that looks pretty good, hit the check mark at the top to commit the transformation. And this next part might be a little bit confusing for some of you, so pay close attention. With your swirls layer selected, hit Control Alt T or Command Option T if you're on a Mac, and then click and drag up and to the left, and then hold the Shift key so that it stays at a 45-degree angle here. And I'll move it a little more up, hold Shift, there we go. And the distance that you move this over is completely up to you. But once you get it to a distance that looks pretty good, you're going to click and drag one of the corners in while holding Alt and Shift. And just size it down until the edges start matching up with the edge of your background circle right here. Okay? So once you've got that down to a proper size, hit the check mark at the top. And then while holding the Alt key, click and drag down and to the right, and then hold the Shift key to match it to the 45-degree angle, and just drag it to a point where it matches up with the edge of that background circle once again. So somewhere around there is looking pretty good. All right, so now once again, Control Alt T, move it down to the right, hold Shift to get it to a 45-degree angle there. Then click and drag at the corner, holding Alt and Shift once again. Size it down to a proper size, so right around there. Maybe I'll click and drag it down a little bit more. Okie dokie. And then holding the Alt key, I can click and drag up and to the left to make another copy of it. So right around there. And then once again, Control Alt T, and just basically repeat those steps until you have the shape filling up the entirety of the sphere here. So that's looking pretty good. Down to the right. Let's do right around there. And that's not too shabby, but I will go ahead and make one more just for kicks. This is probably one too many, right around there, so size it down a lot more this time. And then put one more at the very top. There we go. So there you go. You have all of these swirly things going in one 45-degree angle going from the top left to the bottom right. So once you have all of these layers together, we'll select them all and merge them. Well, actually, we don't really have to merge them if you don't want to. You can put them into a group by hitting Control-G or Command-G if you're on a Mac, and then you can rename that as you want, like Swirls 1. Ta-da. Okay, so now let's do a Control-Alt-T, and then right-click and hit Flip Horizontal. Oop. Apparently, that little shortcut doesn't work. So instead, what we'll do is duplicate the group by hitting Control-J or Command-J if you're on a Mac, and then hit Control-T to bring up the transform tool, and then right-click, and then hit Flip Horizontal. And there you go, you got even more craziness going on here. So let's hit the little check mark up top, and we can rename this to like Swirls 2, something of the sort. And then let's select both Swirls 1 and Swirls 2. We'll hit Control-J or Command-J once again if you happen to be on a Mac. And then let's hit Control-T. And then click and drag on the outside while holding Shift until it's at a 45-degree angle. And then we'll hit the check mark up here to commit that transformation. So here we go. We've got this insane ball of confusion. Now, if you want to, well, actually, I highly suggest this. We can tone this down by selecting all 4 of these swirls and putting either the opacity or the fill down to about, let's say, 30%. And so that way we've got a nice faded ball here. Okay, so next up, let's create the center ball of light. So I'm going to make a layer. I'll do it above the swirls just for the fun of it. Let's call this light. Okie dokie. And let's go back to our brush tool by hitting the letter B and bring up our brush panel once again. And we'll turn off the shape dynamics so that way we have just a standard brush here. And let's just let's bring back our rulers once again by hitting Control semicolon or Command semicolon if you're on a Mac. And let's size up the brush to a size that looks pretty good. I'm using the right bracket key to size up and the left bracket key to size down if you don't really know that trick already. And let's put up the hardness a little bit. Maybe let's try 50%. And let's just get this somewhere in the middle. If you want to be precise with where the ball of light is centered, just hit Caps Lock on your keyboard and it will turn the brush into this little crosshair here. And then you can use that to really put that right in the middle there. So hit Caps Lock again to turn that off. And while we're at it, let's make another layer, and let's call this light 2. And this time around, let's put the hardness down to 0%, and let's make this a lot larger in size, so maybe somewhere around there. And boom, maybe that's a little bit too much there, so undo, and size it down some, and try this again. There you go, much better. Much more beautiful. Look at that. All right. So now we've got some lights in the center. We've got this crazy, like, swirly stuff going on here. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, we really do need to make the swirls, like, fade out a little bit better. So let's turn off the lights. Let's actually turn off the top 3 sets of swirls and select Swirls 1. And let's just add a layer mask here. And let's see, let's bring back the rulers again with Control semicolon. Let's grab our gradient tool by hitting the letter G, or, yeah, that would still be G if you're on a Mac. And let's see, so with white to black for your gradient, And with the gradient set to reflected, you'll see that right here, reflect the gradient. Let's click and drag from the middle down and to the right while holding shift, and we'll click and drag that to the edge of the swirl, and then we'll let go, and you'll see that makes a nice little fade there, so with the center being fully opaque. Okay, so let's do the next one. Let's go to Swirls 2, add a layer mask, except this time we'll click and drag like up and to the right while holding shifts, let go, makes a nice little fade, looking really nice. So next up, Swirls 1 copy. Add a layer mask, click and drag to one of the edges there, holding shifts, let go, makes a nice fade. And we'll do that to Swirls 2 copy. So click and drag to the right, let go. There you go, we've got a nice fade. So let's turn all these back on, turn off that little set of rulers, and look at how much nicer that looks. It's not quite as chaotic, and it's a lot prettier to look at. Okay, so we're almost done. Let's add one more thing. So let's add a new layer above the ellipse here, and let's turn off all of these layers above it for the time being, and let's go back and grab our ellipse tool over here. And for the fill, make sure this is set to white, and bringing back the rulers again. So let's click and drag from the middle, holding Alt and Shift. We'll make it roughly the same size as the current ellipse here. So we'll let go now. And then let's hold the Alt key if you're on a PC, hold the Option, it'll be the Option key if you're on a Mac, and then click and drag once again from the middle, holding Alt and Shift, until you have just this slight ring left over, or just make a circle that's slightly smaller than the first one that you just made, and let go. And that should give you this cool little ring here. And now we'll just, let's right click this layer and click rasterize layer there. So that way it's all pixels now. And let's hit Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac. Click and drag it while holding shift until it's 45 degrees. And then once again, making this a smaller ring. And you can make this whatever size you want. Let's do, how small do I want this to be? Let's do something like right there, and then we'll hit the check mark right here. And then we'll basically do the same thing that we did with the other swirls. We'll hold the, we'll do Control-Alt-T, move up and to the left while holding Shift, size it down a little bit, and then we'll make a copy going down and to the right, so somewhere around right there. And Control-Alt-T again, and just kind of repeat this as many times as you want. And I'll size that down about there, and drag this back up this way. Looking good. Control-Alt-T. And let's size her on down, and put this down here. And one more should do the trick. Let's size her down. Looking snazzy. And voila. So there we go. We've got all these ellipses, and let's select them all and merge them together with Control-E or Command-E if you're on a Mac, and you can rename that to rings. And then let's hit Control-J or Command-J if you're on a Mac, and then Control-T, right-click, flip horizontal, and we've got some cool little rings intersecting here. Now we'll hit the little check mark up top. And for this, what I actually like to do, let's bring both of these rings to the top, now that I think about it. Let's turn on all of the swirls and the lights, and let's set the rings to overlay. And if you want to, you can kind of tone down the opacity so that way they're not quite so intense, but what you do with them is completely up to you. So let's turn off the ellipse in the background and see what this looks like. Not too shabby, but what we do need for sure is some coloring, but I'm thinking that I might just add this in when I put it into the other picture and not really worry about that just yet. Well, actually, no, let's go ahead and take care of that now. So let's make a new layer, and let's call this color. And we'll just fill this in with whatever our background color or our foreground color happens to be by hitting Alt Backspace or Option Delete if you're on a Mac. And we'll put the fill down to 0%, and then we'll add a color overlay, and we'll set that to some sort of light bluish color. Hit OK. And let's change the blend mode to color dodge. And this is kind of crazy as it looks right now, so let's tone down the color dodge just a little bit. And then if you want to, you can go back to the blending options and turn down the opacity as well. And just to get a nice little glow here. So kind of tweak with those two settings as you so choose until you get something that looks just right. That's actually looking pretty good. So I have the opacity at 80%. The color is 5 dB CFF. And right now I have the opacity at about 76%. So now let's hit OK and close this up. And let's take a look here. Let's just take a look. Not too shabby. So, of course, now that we've got this done, let's go ahead and throw this into our picture. So, let's bring up the picture we want to use. Where did I put it? I think it's in my pictures. I've got a lot of pictures. There we go. In goes the image. There we go. So, to bring this into the next image, I really want to merge it all into one layer. So let's turn off the color, and then with the rings copy selected right below the color layer, let's hit Control Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E if you're on a Mac, and let's click and drag this up to the new image and bring her on down into the image we want to put it in. And this particular ball of light is a little too small, so let's set the blend mode to screen. And then do a Control T to bring up the transform tool and size this up while holding Alt and Shift until it's looking about the right size here. So let's do somewhere right around there is not too shabby. Hit the little check mark to commit that transformation. And let's go grab the color here. So okay, here's what we're gonna do. Let's right click the effects icon on the color and click copy layer style. And let's go back to our image. We'll make a new layer for the color. And with our brush tool, basically just paint white on all of the areas that you want to have that blue color. So I'm gonna have this mostly on the ball of light. I'm gonna put it on my hand, and I'm gonna have this trail off onto my shirt, and also onto my face over here, and more on my thumb over there as well. So there we go. We've got all of the white for the areas that we want to have colorized. So now let's right click the color layer and click paste layer style. So there we go. Now this is making a nice, beautiful set of coloring for all of those areas that we want to have color. So let's turn that off for the time being and turn off the Rasengan, and let's add some let's see, what are we adding in here? Let's add a little bit of contrasting to kind of emphasize that ball of light there. So only with the Rasengan layer turned on, so we know what the heck we're doing with this. Let's go to layer, new fill layer, gradients, and you can just leave that as normal. We'll change the mode to let's do overlay. We'll hit OK. And for the gradient, let's see. So we'll click the white to black gradient we have here. And we'll make the first slider a kind of like a light bluish color. Hit OK. Hit OK again. We'll change the style to radial with an angle around, let's say 35 degrees. And a scale of like maybe 130. And then if you click and drag, you can see where the center of the gradient is. And just kind of have that centered right where that ball of light is. And we'll hit OK. Let's turn the color back on to see what's going on. Whoa, we're getting some epic craziness going on here. So let's start masking off the Rasengan so that way it looks like it's actually behind my hand. So I'm going to put the Rasengan into a group by hitting Control G or Command G if you happen to be on a Mac. And I'll just rename that Rasengan as well. What the heck. And let's add a layer mask. And of course, with your brush tool and the color black as your foreground color, let's go in and start getting rid of the areas on like the fingers right here. And let's kind of fade this out a little bit as well. We don't want it all right there. And let's do the next finger over here. And we can actually probably bring back some of the light right here to have it kind of like arch through the fingers a little bit. And everywhere else should be just fine. Now, if you want to, and you're in Photoshop CS6, you can turn up the feather on the mask in the properties panel right here to kind of make it blend a little bit differently. But that's completely up to you whether or not you want to tweak that. And also, if you want this to look even more like the Rasengan, what I would suggest doing is adding a new layer above the... Actually, yeah, we'll do it above the Rasengan. And let's make a brush with the hardness of... let's do about 75% on the hardness. We'll size this up. And let's add this in right around there. And then you can turn down the opacity, and maybe we will put this inside the Rasengan group so that way it's masked behind the fingers and all that. And this is essentially just to create the illusion that it's actually just a solid ball rather than a tiny ball of light in the center with flakes of energy going around. And I might actually size this up just a little bit. So right around there, that's actually a lot better. Look at that. So a little before and after makes it look like it's more like a ball rather than just flakes of energy going around. And let's see, what else is there to do? Oh, one thing that you can do as well, let me turn off some of this stuff. You can add a layer mask to the Rasengan layer, and we'll go to Filter, Render, Clouds. And that's just going to randomize the ball a little bit, and we can bring that back. But the only downside to adding in the clouds is that it gets rid of the center ball of light there. So just have the layer mask selected, go back to your brush tool, and go back in and add that center ball of light back in with by painting in white on the mask there. And so if you do a before and after with the clouds, you'll see that it adds a big difference. I might actually tone down the density on this particular set of clouds because it's really chopping away a lot of those flakes of energy there. So this is just one of those things where you would tweak with the settings as you go and just see what you like. But in general, that is all you have to do for this particular effect. So let's just kind of crop this. So go to my crop tool, 16 by 9, hit the little check mark, and just to have a nice, beautiful 16 by 9 resolution here. And let's take a look at our handiwork. Alright guys, so that's about all there is to creating your own Rasengan / Kamehameha / ball of energy thing. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It actually went a lot smoother than I was expecting it to. And if you learned something new and you enjoyed it and all of that kind of good stuff, just leave a comment in the comment section below letting me know. Or you could like the video. That's also a pretty good little plus there when you guys like the video for me. Nice and, just nice of you guys to do. Show your appreciation and all that. And, yeah, if you have any suggestions for future tutorials or anything of the sort, just let me know by, again, leaving a comment in the comment section below or by sending me an email to brandon@chichicheckit.com or by sending me a message on Facebook, one of the two, whichever you prefer. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I will hopefully see you next Tuesday. Enjoy your Thanksgiving if you are in America. Peace out.